Bruce Dawe's poetry has created a shift in the history of Australian literature. According to an Australian biography site, his poetry allows us an insight into the motivation and methods of a very fine writer. He has inspired many with his unique writing approach and the way he displays the typical Australian lifestyle in his work. He has created numerous poems, with one entitled Homecoming, written in 1968 during the Vietnam War. Dawe expresses that the soldiers were in Vietnam by mentioning that they were on the tarmac at Tan Son Nhut. The title Homecoming usually represents the joyous time when soldiers return home to their families and causes the reader to feel a sense of victory or relief. Ironically, the poem expresses grief for the loss of the soldiers' lives, an elegy. It portrays the story of how Australia's war heroes died in battle. Their dead bodies needed to be returned home. Readers can identify this, as Dawe describes that they're picking them up, those they can find, and bringing them home. They're zipping them up in green plastic bags. This forms quite a sorrowful and mournful tone in the poem, creating in us a sense of sadness and grief. The repetition of the word home near the middle of the poem represents longing that the soldiers had in their hearts while they were still alive, but also the yearning that their families had, anticipating their arrival back home. This also gives a sense of sorrow and misery for the reader. Dawe concludes the poem with a paradox. They're bringing them home now, too late, too early. This contradiction between the two time settings leaves the reader thinking about the situation. Could Dawe have meant that it was too early for the young soldiers to die, or that it was too late for them to happily come home to their families? I found this poem interesting as it effectively conveys these aspects of the war times and the impact it had on Australia as a nation. Dawe clearly uses techniques such as imagery and emotive language to communicate his own emotions and perspective as a young man during the late 60s. Bedroom Conversations was a free verse poem written in the 1980s. This was a period of social change and popular culture in Australia, with the rise of pop music and unique fashion styles. Ideas presented in the poem, such as growing up, represent a time of transition into a new era, which reflects the transitional change in Australia as it entered the 80s. The title in itself is engaging for readers, and allows them to picture a sanctuary or a private place where people, especially families, are able to freely talk to each other and have even the most nonsense conversations without worrying about being embarrassed. Dawe has communicated a relationship between parents and their young daughters who are at the developing stage from childhood to adolescence. He describes the young girls as eager for conversation of the most cosmic kind. They are portrayed as dramatically enthusiastic as they begin to discover more about their identity and the world around them. The girls also frequently ask questions for their parents, showing their eagerness to learn more. Questions such as, "Mom, I was wondering," or "Mom, remember how you said?" remain unfinished. This use of dialogue shows the way Dawe illustrates the character of these children. The incomplete questions express how the children's minds are filled with curiosity and excitement. The many wonders which they have cannot be given one simple answer. I liked how Dawe used the metaphor of tiddlers in a bland pool to describe the way the children's eyes flicker as they pass by the bedroom mirror. To compare them to small fish shows that they are viewed as innocent and somewhat lost. This metaphor is effective as it clearly communicates that the girls are at the age where they are keen to learn about the surrounding society, yet are still confused about certain aspects of life, leading them to asking questions about how or why things are the way they are. Issues of body image and change are also explored through the lifestyle of the characters. These are issues which are relevant to both today's society and in the past. Bruce Dawe describes the girls as spinning busily in the depthless element of their vanity, the restless search for reassurance. The described vanity represents self-absorption, as the girls are concerned with their developing ego and exploring their own identity through physical appearance and experimentation, which is also expressed in the last stanza of the poem. It says, "They rise with experimental eyebrows, lips still framing cutenesses." Through this illustration, readers are able to identify that they are young, innocent girls who are growing up and looking for answers through their bedroom conversations. I can personally relate, as I was once 8 years old, exploring the world and seeing what it had for me. Bruce Dawe has left a legacy through his unique and fascinating work, which has allowed the minds of many Australians to reflect on society, past and present. In many of his numerous poems, such as Homecoming and Bedroom Conversations, we can see that sometimes the little things in life are the things that matter.